Well, hello again. I did say that I thought I might make another video before the end of the year, cutting it a bit close. It's Monday the 30th of December 2024. It's 10 minutes past 11 AM. I'm just going to set the timer. I don't want it to go over half an hour. Sorry about this, I should have done this before I pressed record. Okay. First of all, very many thanks for all the good wishes for Christmas from everyone that left the comments under the previous video. All the Merry Christmas and Happy Christmas comments, much appreciated. Thank you very much indeed. Now, as predicted, the drone activity is tapering off. You know, people have got better things to do than see if they can get their drone on the news. They've had a few beers over Christmas, they're relaxing on the sofa, they're still digesting the Christmas turkey probably, and the last thing they can be bothered to do is to drag their carcasses off the sofa, off the lounge as it's called here in Australia, and go and fly drones. They just can't be bothered. So the drone activity has dropped off like a rock. As predicted. I think I said that in the last video, didn't I? After Christmas, all this nonsense drone nonsense will be gone. And it's almost gone now. I saw another video where this guy says, oh, you can see this orb, and it's morphing into one of these weird drones. And all it was landing lights of an airliner, you know. And as it turned, you can see the lights on the wingtips and the tail light. So it seemed to split into four, if you know what I mean. It's an airliner, obviously an airliner, you know. These people have got zero critical thinking ability, zero image analysis ability. Either that or they died in the war fanboys, and that's all they see. You know, they turn the light on in the toilet and they think it's an alien mothership stuck against the toilet ceiling. So, you know, by the end of January, everyone will have forgotten about this drone nonsense. You know, everyone's kicking back on the sofa, watching Netflix, drinking a few beers, or a few Jack Daniels or whatever. They couldn't give a damn about drones anymore. Apparently everybody except for Steve Bassett. Apparently Steve Bassett is not forgotten about these drones. He's not kicking back and watching Netflix and having a few beers. You know, Steve Bassett died in the wall fanboy, zero critical thinking ability. Steve Bassett was saying he thinks all this drone activity is in fact ET. And the reason the extraterrestrials are doing this is because they're getting fed up with the governments on Earth not disclosing their presence. So now they're flying drones around all over the place, trying to show their annoyance. Have you ever heard anything more ludicrous? You know, what Bassett is trying to do, he's trying to goad the government into disclosing. That's what he's saying. He's saying it's ET. If you're not going to disclose, they will. Because, you know, Bassett's knocking on now. He wants to see this disclosure before he dies. And of course he won't, because there's nothing to disclose. How many times do I have to say it? There is no ET materials, recovered ET materials, technological materials and biological materials here on Earth. Yeah, Bassett is, Grusch, national hero, you know, should get some kind of medal. Now, when I look at Grusch, I think there's something just doesn't look right about this guy. You know, he looks a bit odd, and yeah, it's personal opinion here, of course. What he says is complete and utter rubbish. Tim Burchett said that you know there's been all these blocks between Grusch and a skiff. You know, he said in that hearing where he appeared a couple of years ago now, I think it is, he wanted to get into a skiff with Mace and Luna and co. Well, getting into a skiff with Luna wouldn't be much of a hardship, would it? But there's all these blocks, and that's completely untrue. Because Arrow tried to get Grusch to come in and talk to them on numerous occasions. They even said they would go to him, and he won't meet with Arrow. Arrow, he doesn't need a skiff for Arrow. They're cleared to hear any testimony. They're cleared to look into any program, any compartment. Grusch can just go along and tell his story to Arrow. So why don't they get the John Kozlowski, the new Arrow director, Tim Burchett, and David Grusch in the same room at the same time, so that Tim Burchett can see there is zero blockage. There are zero obstacles to David Grusch telling his story. Of course he won't, for the same reason these other 40 fake whistleblowers won't go to Arrow, because they know Arrow can check all this stuff out, they're cleared to check all this stuff out, and they know that it will be revealed to be science fiction very, very quickly. So just getting quickly back to Steve Bassett. I'm reading the notes here. Steve Bassett will die without seeing disclosure. So will I. So will all of you, because there's nothing to disclose. ET's never been here. ET's not coming here now. These drones are nothing to do with ET. ET using drones with FAA required navigation and anti-collision lighting. Get a grip, people. Get through these notes quite quickly. This might be a fairly quick one. There's quite a few notes here, but obviously I'm spreading my writing out as I'm getting older, probably, so I can see it. So yes, the visiting crashing ETs are science fiction rubbish, of course. Now that the drones are tapering off, because Lou Elizondo is getting excited about the drones, he's got to try and talk it up, obviously. He's got a book to sell, imminent. What will Lou Elizondo come up with in a couple of weeks when the drone sightings have finally dried up completely? He is going to have to go down to the local chandelier shop and pick up a few chandeliers, isn't he? And some fishing line. So if you live in the, if you got a chandelier shop in the area where Lou Elizondo lives, I've got no idea where he lives, but if you've got a chandelier shop anywhere in that shopping mall near Lou Elizondo, just go and put a card in his mailbox. You'll flog a few chandeliers. You might even sell half a dozen of them. So. So Lou Elizondo is going to be hanging a chandelier up and filming it and saying, this is an alien mothership, you know, it was hovering above this top secret American base, you know. You can't see anything, it's just a field. Under the field, top secret base. Take my word for it. Buy my book, I'll tell you all about it. Now, Lou Elizondo spruiks a lot of ridiculous, pathetic drivel. You know, with his 5 observables that he was saying, well, you know, our F-16, it can take about 9 Gs or 15 Gs or whatever it is before it starts structurally breaking up. Oh, just as an aside, I was really surprised to see that, you know, fighter pilots these days, they put the suit on, you know, it's pressurised, keeps the blood in their bodies and all this sort of stuff when they fly these fighter jets. Back in the Second World War, Spitfire pilots were pulling 9 Gs. You know, and they're just wearing their standard uniform. So what does that say about today's fighter pilots? Just don't make them like they used to, eh? Anyway, he was saying that these objects we're observing are at 5,000 Gs or 50,000 Gs. It was a ridiculous number. I can't remember which. It was one of those. You know, go along and then right angles, and they thousands of Gs. No human could ever take that. You know, no human structure could ever take that. And he's right. And, you know, no alien structure would do it either. You know, because there's system glitches. What he should be asked is, how many occurrences of this have been observed, and where and when and on what system? Because if it was the Princeton after its update, you know, with its software update, remember the Hawkeye, all these things are linked. The Hawkeye didn't have an update. The Hawkeye didn't see any of this stuff. You you know, going from here down to the surface. If that's all he's talking about, it's a system glitch, isn't it? Why would ETs engineer a vehicle that can turn at right angles at Mach 10? What exactly would be the point of that? I mean, it's giving themselves engineering problems they don't need, isn't it? And I would think an interstellar spacecraft and scoutcraft will be as simple as possible. Obviously, they're going to have redundancy systems. They may even be self-healing. What they're not going to be doing is turning right angles at Mach 10 or Mach 5. It's system glitches. That's all it is. But he should be asked that. How many times has this been observed? On what system and where? Because it's ridiculous nonsense. Elizondo must know these are not real physical objects. Book to sell imminent. So Elizondo, I've said it before, put a line through it. Personal opinion, he's not credible. It's pathetic drivel. What he's spruiking is ridiculous, ludicrous. Oh, Ross Coulthard. I saw Ross Coulthard the other day. Now, apparently, I didn't know what happened to Ross Coulthard, but apparently 60 Minutes, he used to be a reporter for 60 Minutes, but apparently they didn't renew his contract. He wasn't happy with the money. That's how the story goes. But I wouldn't be at all surprised, you know, if he hadn't jumped on this ET bandwagon while he was still under contract with 60 Minutes. I think he might have done something with Channel 7 Spotlight about it. But, you know, the mainstream media want to distance themselves from this science fiction rubbish. Because there is zero tangible evidence to support any of it, to support one ET crash, one ET recovery. You know. Technology and biology, you know, there is zero tangible evidence to support that happening even once. They might have thought, well, this guy's credibility is looking shaky, you know, so we're not going to have anything more to do with him. Now, I wonder if that's what happened. I don't know that's what happened, but I suspect it might be. You don't see Coulthard on the mainstream media anymore. It's only on this science fiction rubbish channels that we see him. Now, I saw Coulthard the other day, and he's talking about a vase, you know, this lost, you know, an ancient advanced civilization, you know. The ancient Egyptians could not have made a vase with this kind of precision. And he's talking to a guy that specialises in this. He's been researching this. He's not a professional archaeologist, but he's been researching this ancient Egyptian vases that are made with such precision that they reckon the ancient Egyptians could not have made them. They could not have cut through the granite with their copper tube tools. Well, there are a few questions here. You know, what's the provenance of these vases, for a start? You know, where exactly do they come from? Is this another crystal skull debacle? I noticed when I looked at one of the vases, if you look at it from the top, the handles are not perfectly 180 degrees apart. They're sort of like that, you know. So if you were engineering a vase with great precision, you would think that at least the handles would be 180 degrees apart, wouldn't you? No provenance for these vases. So, and if you can't carbon date them, of course, because all you're doing is carbon dating the granite, isn't it? So personally, I don't think there's ever been a technologically advanced civilization before the ancient Egyptians. Sounds like my neighbour's getting his tank out of the garage. Is it going to be a noisy departure? So, I don't think there's any evidence of a technologically advanced civilization before the ancient Egyptians. Personally, we never find any super exotic synthetic materials, do we? You know, we've never found Ramesses II's laptop. You know, there's no 5,000-year-old television antennas, you know, on top of the pyramids. And they keep mentioning how wonderful all this, to build these pyramids. They no idea how long it took to build them. Regardless, how heavy it is and all that sort of stuff, there's still a pyramid. It's still a pile of rocks. It's a pile of rocks, smaller and smaller and smaller towards the top. Now, if it was the other way up, I'd say yeah. There's definitely some advanced technology gone into the construction of that pyramid. But they're a pile of rocks. If you look at the pyramids in South America, okay, they don't look exactly the same, they're stepped. But the blocks are lined up with similar precision. There's no evidence of any kind of advanced alien civilization technology. So another thing Coulthard is peddling. I don't know whether he's got a book about that as well, but I'd put a line through that personally. Until someone actually finds, opens up an ancient Egyptian tomb and then finds, there's a sarcophagus there made of carbon fibre or something like that, or graphene. I'd put a line through that. How are we doing? Ooh, we've got about 10 minutes to go. So apparently there was a UAP spotted in southern England. It's flying around and it was dripping molten metal. Now you may recall the story from Rendlesham Forest. They said it appeared to be dropping molten material. They never found any at Rendlesham, but apparently someone in the UK, they went looking for below where this thing was hovering and they found this little tiny piece of material. Now, it looks a lot like small meteorites. Could also be a little bit of industrial waste. But as far as I know, they haven't analysed it to see if it's been subjected to, cosmic and space radiation to see if it's actually been off planet. And if it has been, whether it's the makeup of it is typical of small meteorites. As I've said before, personally, I don't think you're going to find any kind of metal in alien spacecraft. They can get here from another part of the galaxy. Their engineering is going to be such that there's going to be... The spacecraft are going to be made of super low mass, super exotic synthetic materials we can't even imagine at this point. There's not going to be any metal in an alien spacecraft. And of course, for metal to be dripping off the alien spacecraft, the aliens would have to be the worst engineers in the galaxy, wouldn't they? I mean, we make spacecraft and we make aircraft. They don't fly around dropping molten metal all over the place. Not unless there's something seriously wrong with them anyway. So it'll be interesting to see if they're going to submit this for analysis, this material. They're going to submit it to a university for analysis. I probably wouldn't give it to Gary Nolan. He's a little bit biased. But a respectable independent university, just to do some sort of analysis, see what it's made of. Senator Tim Burchett tells us the government knows these drones are... This should have been after the first part, actually, but... are Chinese. So that's why, people have been saying, well, the American government knows exactly what these are, but they're not saying. It's probably just not politically acceptable to say they're Chinese. Tim Burchett says the US government knows the drone swarms that have been on the news recently are Chinese. Obviously, there's copycats. There's private drones getting into the picture, trying to get their drones on TV. What kicked it all off were Chinese drones, and the American government knows that. Burchett says there's probably a ship off the coast or a submarine off the coast. They launched a swarm of 50 drones. and then they fly around and they look around, and that's what it is. And the US government knows that's what it is. You know, so I've mentioned the Bass Strait before, the bulk carrier, the Bass Strait. You know, it's got a drone swarm on it. If the Bass Strait has got a drone swarm on it, other Chinese commercial vessels are going to have drone swarms. Maybe they were launched from a submarine. The Chinese have recently launched a ship that specialises in drones. It's just a drone ship. It launches swarms of drones. That's all it does. Nothing ET related with these drones. You have to be blinking fanboy, Steve Bassett. Oh, it's ET! Waving a flag, we're here. You know, of course, if they were here, it would be completely unambiguous. You know, they'd fly up the Thames, over the Houses of Parliament. You know, fly over the White House. Before you know where you are, there's going to be fighter planes all around them. It's going to be on. It's live streamed all over the place. It's going to be on every television channel, and they're not going to come here unless they can communicate with us. And they'll just communicate with us and say, where can we land? And it'll be some Air Force base in Russia or America or China maybe. And then the dialogue would begin. They're not going to fly drones around with FAA approved lighting. Steve Bassett is just, he's got zero critical thinking ability, you know. Mind you, he thinks Roswell was the crash of an alien spacecraft. What does that tell you? Mac Brazel found the Roswell wreckage, you know, on June the 14th. Nothing to do with the big storm on July the 7th. Brazel described it as balsa wood sticks, strips of rubber, tin foil, scotch tape, cardboard. That's the Roswell wreckage. So that's exactly what I said on a video or two back. You know, it's most likely it's going to be swarms of drones from a Chinese ship or submarine offshore, or Russian ship or Russian submarine offshore, or both. You probably find the Russian drones will be made in China anyway. So if they got hold of one, it's still going to have made in China written on them. Mind you, the American ones probably have made in China written on them as well. Oh dear. Burchett also said he was unsure of the origin of the orbs, though. You know, he knows what the origin of the drones are, but he's not sure what the origin of the orbs are. Some of them are square and some of them are rectangular. Well, that's not orbs, is it? An orb is round. It's a sphere, Senator. You know, you need to brush up on your orb identification. And as I've said, you know, I saw a video clip of orb morphing into something else. It was landing lights coming towards you. That looks like an orb. As the plane turns, gets closer, you can see the other lights on the wingtips and on the tail. Like it splits into four and flies in formation. It's a commercial airliner. So Tim Burchett can't tell the difference between a commercial airliner and an alien orb. Probably been taking lessons from Lou Elizondo. John Stewart has realised no one gives a damn about his silly rubber alien video. No one gives a damn who Victor is. Everyone knows it's Bob Dean. No one's interested in John Stewart's opinion. So now he's jumped on the Bigfoot bandwagon. John Stewart. When's your birthday, John? I thought you said after your birthday you were leaving all this stuff alone. We'd never see you again. Promise is a promise, mate. But now he's saying there's a connection between Bigfoot and E.T. Don't quite know how little tiny grey aliens would leave massive footprints that have been compressed into the ground a couple of inches, so it looks like the creature weighs 1,000 pounds. You know, people make these fake feet up. You know, probably fill them up with molten lead and drop them in the mud. You know, people are faking Bigfoot footprints all the time. But how does a little grey creature that you could probably pick up with one hand, you know, by its pencil neck, going by the description of these things, leave Bigfoot footprints 2 inches in the mud? John Stewart. You might want to consider changing your medication, John. Even the crows agree. And what else have we got? had Grusch avoiding talking to Arrow, and all the other witnesses, of course, avoiding talking to Arrow. They're all fake witnesses, of course. None of this is real. They'd be queuing up at Arrow's door to get their stories verified if there was anything real to this. It's all bullshit, all of it. Drivel. Okay, what else do we have? Oh, lastly, Tom DeLonge. Tom DeLonge of the TTSA, you know. Give me loads of money and I'll build you a starship, you know. Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis said we can knock one up in an afternoon. Tom DeLonge of the TTSA fame. Now, I think the TTSA has gone down the gurgler. The money's disappeared. There is no starship being delivered. Knocked me down with a feather. What a surprise. Tom DeLonge is now saying that they're trying to clutch at straws here, and they're trying to sort of get little bits of truth and try and weave in some UFO science fiction rubbish, some ET science fiction rubbish. Tom DeLonge is now saying that the Starfish Prime nuclear test, atom bomb test, nuclear bomb test, which is 1.4 megatons, is a significant bomb. They let it off 250 miles above the planet, above Johnston Atoll in the South Pacific, or in the Pacific anyway. Back in July the 9th, 1962. Big nuclear explosion in space. Killed 8 satellites, and they went, oops, I hope we're not going to get the bill for that. And Tom DeLonge is now saying that when they did that test, it brought down an alien spacecraft. Alien spacecraft came down in the Pacific and it was recovered. And of course, there's zero tangible evidence to support that. So now these piffle peddlers, the piffle's getting pretty thin on the ground. So now they're trying to see what in history they can weave into an ET crashing story. So now they're going to use nuclear tests. You know, like the film Godzilla. You ever seen that film Godzilla? Well, they said the nuclear tests in the Pacific, they weren't nuclear tests. They were trying to kill it, you know. At that point, I stopped watching that movie. I thought this is... Obviously, they've got zero imagination, these people. The script writers for this film. So Starfish Prime, real nuclear test. Caused all kinds of problems in Hawaii. The electromagnetic pulse. This is how they found out about the electromagnetic pulse, how widespread the damage can be caused from the electromagnetic pulse from a nuclear explosion. Big nuclear explosion, though, 1.4 megatons. So, and it actually rattled Telstar 1, apparently. I don't know whether it killed it completely. You remember the first commercial communication satellite, Telstar 1? Yeah, so they wouldn't have been very pleased about that, because that would not have been up there very long in 1962. Telstar 1. So it was launched from Johnstone Atoll. It got about 31 kilometres downrange, 250 miles up, boom. And now Tom DeLonge of We Want Your Money to build a starship that you're never going to get fame is trying to weave a crashing ET story into that. The explosion damaged an extraterrestrial spacecraft and it crashed into the Pacific Ocean and was recovered. Absolute bullshit. Complete and utter rubbish. Without any tangible evidence to support it, it's another science fiction bullshit story. My time is up. I have to go. If you've struggled through the video all the way to this point, many thanks for watching, as usual. And I'll hopefully catch you next year.